It takes about 3 seconds. Lens out of the case, onto the finger, onto the eye. You've done it so many times the cornea barely flinches anymore. 45 million Americans do the same thing every day. And the CDC has tracked what it does to them for years. What nobody knew until researchers looked closer was that a contact lens is not a neutral object. It changes the biology of the tissue underneath. And the part that should worry you is not the infections. It's what the lens does quietly over years to your eye's only warning system. How does a thin disc of silicone become a genuine threat to one of the most sensitive tissues in your body? Start with the cornea, the clear dome at the front of your eye, visible under any ophthalmologist's slit lamp. Unlike almost every other tissue in your body, the cornea has no blood supply. 0 blood vessels. That's what makes it transparent. It gets its oxygen the same way your skin does, directly from the atmosphere, filtered through a thin layer of tear film. This also makes it the most nerve-dense tissue in your body. More concentrated free nerve endings than anywhere else. That density exists for a reason. It's the cornea's early warning system. Anything that touches it, anything that threatens it, you feel immediately. A contact lens sits directly on top of this tissue. It covers the surface and partially restricts the oxygen reaching the cells underneath. Every hour you wear it, the cornea is breathing through a barrier it was never designed to have. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention surveyed contact lens wearers across the country and found that 99% reported at least one hygiene risk behavior. Not a small minority, not the careless ones. Virtually everyone, nearly 1 in 3 wearers, said they'd experienced a lens-related eye problem serious enough to need a doctor visit. Across the country, that adds up to almost 1 million outpatient and emergency department visits every year for keratitis and contact lens disorders at a cost of $175 million annually. For a product most people consider harmless, the single largest risk factor for microbial keratitis is not poor hygiene, not contaminated water, not a manufacturing defect. It is contact lens wear itself. This isn't just about infection risk, though. What happens to the cornea under a contact lens is a 3-part process, and each part makes the others worse. The first layer is oxygen deprivation. When a lens blocks airflow to the cornea for extended periods, especially more than 10 hours a day, the tissue responds the only way it can. It grows new blood vessels into the corneal stroma, creeping into tissue that is supposed to have none. This process, called corneal neovascularization, is the cornea's desperate attempt to get oxygen from the bloodstream instead of the air. Once those vessels form, they don't go away. Even if you switch to a higher oxygen lens, even if you stop wearing lenses entirely, the emptied vessels remain in the cornea like dry riverbeds. And if hypoxic conditions return, they refill. The damage is structural, permanent, and in many cases completely symptomless. That absent warning is itself a warning sign, and most wearers never register it. The second layer is biological. A research team at NYU Langone Medical Center studied the bacterial communities living on the eyes of contact lens wearers and discovered something the field had not expected. The bacteria on a lens wearer's eye no longer resembled normal eye bacteria. Instead, the eye's microbiome had shifted to resemble the bacteria found on eyelid skin. 3 times the usual proportion of Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, and other species that do not belong on an exposed, transparent surface. The senior investigator, Maria Gloria Dominguez Bello, put it simply: putting a foreign object on the eye is not a neutral act. And Pseudomonas, one of the bacteria that flourishes on a lens wearer's cornea, is among the most destructive pathogens the eye can encounter. It secretes enzymes that dissolve corneal tissue outright. Complete destruction of the cornea can happen within 24 to 48 hours of onset if untreated. And here is the third layer, the one that connects everything. Contact lens wear gradually reduces corneal sensitivity. Both soft lenses and rigid lenses produce the effect. The longer you wear them, both within a single day and across years of use, the less your cornea can feel. Two mechanisms drive this: mechanical pressure from the lens on the nerve endings, and metabolic interference from reduced oxygen, which shifts pH levels in the tissue and disrupts normal nerve function. Recovery after stopping lens wear takes weeks to months, and in long-term wearers, full recovery may never come. This means the most nerve-rich surface in your body, the tissue specifically designed to warn you of danger, is being slowly numbed by the same object causing the damage. Infections progress further before the wearer notices. Ulcers deepen before pain registers. By the time symptoms finally break through, the damage has a head start. If you're finding this information useful, consider subscribing. We cover the hidden risks inside ordinary life every week. Enter the CDC's own case files. In 2018, the agency published 6 documented cases of corneal infections linked to sleeping in contact lenses. One involved a 59-year-old man who wore his soft lenses overnight during a 2-day hunting trip. On the 3rd day, he developed eye pain. He tried over-the-counter eye drops. They barely helped. A doctor diagnosed a corneal abrasion and prescribed antibiotic drops. His condition worsened. Treatment was escalated to stronger antibiotics every 2 hours around the clock. And then, standing in the shower, he wiped his eyes with a towel and heard a popping sound. His corneal ulcer had perforated. The infection had eaten through the full thickness of his cornea. He was rushed into emergency surgery for a corneal transplant just to keep the eye structurally intact. He recovered useful vision after a year of additional procedures. He was one of the fortunate ones. Sleeping in contact lenses increases infection risk 6 to 8 times, and 1 in 3 wearers reports doing it regularly. And that wasn't even the part that got people angry. Julian Hamlin was 17 years old when he bought a pair of colored contact lenses at a gas station in South Carolina. $20. No prescription, no fitting, no instructions. He wore them almost every day, switching between gray, green, and blue. When his eyes started feeling wrong, a doctor diagnosed pink eye. It was not pink eye. The infection cascaded into a corneal ulcer, then multiple secondary infections, then a cataract, then glaucoma. Over the next 2 years, Julian underwent multiple corneal transplants and more than 10 total surgeries. He is legally blind in his left eye. His right eye is still brown. His damaged left eye is now blue, changed by surgery, not by choice. The lenses that did this were illegal to sell without a prescription. They have been since 2005. It did not matter. The system has known about these risks for decades. In 2006, Bausch & Lomb's Renew with Moisture Lock contact lens solution triggered a nationwide outbreak of fusarium keratitis. 180 confirmed infections across the country. 59 people needed corneal transplants just to try to save their vision. Several alleged the solution cost them an eye entirely. No contamination was found at the factory. No sterility failure. The formula simply couldn't kill the fungus under real-world use conditions, meaning the conditions in which people actually use their lenses. Bausch & Lomb recalled the product globally, and still, an FDA analysis of over 300 illegally sold decorative contact lenses found that up to 60% of the counterfeit pairs tested positive for microbial contamination. They're still sold at gas stations, beauty supply stores, and flea markets across the country, 20 years after the law classified them as prescription medical devices. The contact lens didn't change. What it does to the cornea has been documented since soft lenses first entered the market in the 1970s. What changed is the story 45 million people tell themselves every morning, that the lens is passive, that it is safe, that they can forget it is there. The real question is not whether contact lenses are dangerous. The research settled that a long time ago. The real question is why, knowing everything we now know, we still treat them like they're harmless.